You know that feeling when you catch yourself replaying a conversation in your head? Not because it went badly, but because you keep wondering what they really meant? Or that moment when you realize you've been giving someone the benefit of the doubt for months, maybe years, and they haven't once shown you the same courtesy? It's that quiet, nagging suspicion that while you've been showing up with your whole heart, someone else has been playing a completely different game. And the worst part isn't the disappointment. The worst part is the confusion. It's not knowing why you didn't see it sooner or why you stayed. If that feeling has ever brushed against your skin, stay with me because today we are going to give that confusion a name. And more importantly, we are going to give you the tools to never feel that way again. Welcome to Liz Essence. I'm Liz, and today we're talking about a subject that, once you truly understand it, will change the way you move through every single relationship in your life. We are diving into the laws of human nature, not the watered down, surface level version you find in clickbait articles, but the real psychological mechanics of why people do what they do, why we tolerate what we tolerate, and how you can finally step into a version of yourself that sees clearly, acts wisely, and rests in a peace that no one can disturb. You see, for a long time, many of us are taught to be nice. We are taught to be understanding, to give grace, to assume the best in people, and those are beautiful qualities. They truly are. But what no one tells you is that without the balance of psychological awareness, that sweetness becomes a liability. It becomes an invitation for people who don't have your best interests at heart to take a seat at a table they were never meant to occupy. The laws of human nature, as outlined by thinkers like Robert Greene, aren't about becoming cynical or hard. They are about becoming clear. They are about understanding that every human being, including you, is driven by certain deep-seated forces. And when you are blind to those forces in others, you become a passenger in your own life. So let's start with the first law, and it's a big one. It is the law of irrationality. Now, on the surface, we all like to think we are logical creatures. We make pros and cons lists. We weigh our options. We tell ourselves we are in control. But the truth is, the vast majority of human behavior is driven by emotion and then rationalized after the fact. Think about the last time you felt truly triggered by something someone said. Did you calmly assess the situation, or did you react from a place of old hurt? Did you find yourself explaining away their behavior, making excuses for them, because the alternative, accepting that they simply didn't care enough, was too painful to bear? That is your emotional self taking the wheel. And the tricky part is, your mind will create a very convincing story to justify that emotion. It will tell you, they're just going through a hard time. They didn't mean it that way. I'm being too sensitive. But underneath all that noise, the simple truth is that their behavior made you feel something you didn't want to feel. And instead of sitting with that discomfort, you reached for a story that made it feel safe. This is where so many of us get stuck. We are so busy managing our own emotional discomfort that we fail to see the reality of the other person. We fail to see that their behavior is also driven by their own irrationality, their own fears, their own need for control or validation. When you can step back and recognize that most interactions are a dance of two emotional histories colliding, you stop taking things so personally. You stop asking, why are they doing this to me? And you start asking, what is their behavior revealing about them? That single shift in perspective is the difference between being a victim of your emotions and being an observer of human nature. Now, let's get into something a little more uncomfortable. Let's talk about the law of narcissism. And I don't mean the clinical, diagnosable narcissism we hear about so often online. I mean the deep, inherent narcissism that exists in all of us to some degree. Every human being is, at their core, the center of their own universe. We experience the world through our own senses, our own history, our own pain. This isn't inherently bad. It's just the human condition. The problem arises when we expect others to see the world the same way we do, when we assume that because we would be loyal, they will be loyal, because we would be honest, they will be honest, because we would never intentionally hurt someone, they operate by the same code. This is a romantic illusion, and it is one of the most painful traps you will ever fall into. People project their own reality onto you. If they are secretly competitive, they will assume you are competing with them. If they are insecure, they will interpret your confidence as arrogance. If they are deceiving themselves, they will project that deception onto you and accuse you of being the liar. The law of narcissism teaches us that we must stop judging others by our own internal compass and start observing them by theirs. How do they treat the waiter? How do they speak about their exes? How do they react when they don't get what they want? These are the clues to their true nature. And when you pay attention to these clues, you stop being surprised. You stop being blindsided. You simply note the information and adjust your expectations accordingly. This brings us to a very practical, and let's be honest, a little sassy point. If someone is showing you who they are, believe them. I know you've heard this before, but let's look at the psychology behind why it's so hard to do. Our brains are wired for connection. We are social creatures, and being rejected or abandoned by the tribe used to mean death. So, when we sense a threat to a relationship, our brain floods us with anxiety. It tells us to work harder, to be more understanding, to smooth things over. This is a survival mechanism. But in the modern world, this mechanism keeps us locked in dynamics that are slowly draining us. We ignore the red flags because the thought of starting over, the thought of being alone, feels more terrifying than the slow drip of disrespect. But here's what I want you to understand. That anxiety you feel when you think about walking away, that's not your intuition telling you you're making a mistake. That's your old survival pattern throwing a tantrum. Your intuition, your true inner knowing, is quiet. It's the still, small voice that whispered on the third date, "Something feels off." It's the subtle unease you felt when they made that joke at your expense. It's the heaviness in your chest when they don't show up for you. That is your wisdom. And when you learn to listen to that, instead of the loud, panicky voice of your attachment system, you become dangerous in the best way. You become a woman who cannot be manipulated because you trust yourself more than you fear losing someone who was never truly yours. Now, I want to offer you something practical, a little shift you can start making today. It's about learning to observe without absorbing. Think of yourself as a detective in your own life. When someone acts out, when they are hot and cold, when they say one thing and do another, instead of spiraling into, "What did I do wrong?" Instead of absorbing their chaos and making it your responsibility to fix, you simply observe, you note the behavior, you file it away, you don't react. You don't confront them with a list of their inconsistencies, hoping they will finally see the light. Confrontation without observation is just emotional dumping. It gives them all your power and all your information. Instead, you pull back. You give them space to be exactly who they are, and you watch. This is how you gather data. This is how you build a case file on the people in your life. And when you have enough data, you make a decision. You decide if this person gets a seat at your table, or if they need to be politely but firmly shown the door. This is what emotional self-possession looks like. It is not about being cold. It is about being centered. It is about knowing that your peace is non-negotiable. And when you operate from this place, you will notice something interesting. The people who were only there for what they could take, they will fade away. They cannot handle your quiet observation. They need your emotional chaos to feed their own. And when you stop supplying it, they have nothing left to take. The people who are meant for you, the ones who are emotionally mature and capable of real connection, they will feel safe in your stillness. They will respect your boundaries because they have their own. And that, my love, is how you build a life that is not just full, but deeply, quietly fulfilling. Before we move into our final piece, I want to pause here for a moment. If what I'm saying is resonating with you, if you're starting to see the patterns in your own life with a little more clarity, then you are exactly where you need to be. This space, this channel, it's for women who are ready to move differently. Women who are tired of the games, tired of the confusion, and ready to step into their power with grace. So, if you haven't already, I would love for you to hit that like button. It helps other women like you find this message. And if you want to be part of a community that values clarity over chaos, subscribe and turn on notifications. Leave me a comment below and tell me, what is one pattern you are ready to release? Let's make this a conversation. Let's build a circle of women who see clearly and love fiercely, starting with themselves. Now, let's bring it all together with the final law we need to discuss, and it's the law of envy. This is the one nobody wants to talk about. Envy is the shadow emotion. It's the feeling we hide from ourselves and from others. It's the bitter taste in your mouth when a friend succeeds, or the secret satisfaction when someone who wronged you falls. We all have it. But the most dangerous form of envy is the one that is disguised. It's the friend who always has a subtle criticism of your new relationship. It's the family member who downplays your achievements. It's the partner who seems supportive but somehow always makes your dreams feel smaller than theirs. They don't come out and say they are jealous. They come out and say they are concerned. They are just looking out for you. They don't want you to get hurt. But underneath that concern is often a desperate need to keep you at their level because your growth illuminates their stagnation. Recognizing envy in others is a superpower. When you understand that some people's negative reactions have nothing to do with you and everything to do with their own dissatisfaction, you can stop internalizing the comments. You can smile, nod, and then go do exactly what you were going to do anyway. You don't need to defend your light. You don't need to dim it to make them comfortable. You just need to be aware of who is celebrating you and who is merely tolerating your success. Protect your energy from the envious by sharing your deepest dreams selectively. Share them with the people who have proven they can hold space for your joy without needing to insert their own insecurity. This isn't secrecy. This is wisdom. And finally, I want to leave you with a grounding thought. The ultimate goal of understanding these laws is not to become a master manipulator. It is not to control others or play games. The goal is freedom. It is the freedom to move through the world with your eyes open. It is the freedom to love deeply, but without losing yourself. It is the freedom to trust, but to verify. It is the freedom to walk away from anything that threatens your peace without the crippling fear of what comes next. You are the one constant in your life. You are the one person you will never leave. So, doesn't it make sense to build a relationship with yourself that is so solid, so unshakable that no one else's behavior can ever topple it? That is the work. That is the prize. When you stop needing people to be a certain way for you to feel safe, you finally become free. You stop chasing, you stop pleading, you stop over-functioning for people who wouldn't even notice if you stopped. You simply become a woman who knows her worth, not because she demands it from the world, but because she has finally given it to herself. So as you go from this space today, take a breath, feel the calm in your own center. You don't need to have all the answers right now. You just need to be willing to see a little more clearly. And from that clarity, your next right step will reveal itself. Thank you for being here, for being brave enough to look within. I'm Liz, and this is your space. I'll see you in the next video.